The year started out with thinking about interdisciplinary work across the academy, the honors program, but it quickly evolved into what are experiential learning experiences and how do you actually evaluate them? When people think of experiential learning, oftentimes they think of internships, student teaching, service, and the first year seminar. And what we've learned is that oftentimes it's experiential experiences across all of their time in university that really improves their understanding of topics and of various competencies. This study by Finley and McNair shows that the more EL experiences that a student has, the greater their understanding of a topic. And also, the more EL experiences they have, the more understanding they have for a lot of the competencies that we want our PARC student graduates to come away with, such as professionalism and work ethic, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and leadership. There's up to an 80% increase in extremely improved competencies when a student has multiple EL experiences. So what exactly is an EL experience? Dale's cone of experience here shows the levels of understanding and remembering based on the types of interactions they have in their learning community. At the top, we have what is traditional lecture classroom experiences where they read, hear, and write things down, but they only remember up to 20% of the material they're actually presented with. Whereas in the center of the pyramid, we have sort of a dynamic classroom and an engaging classroom. But even with all of these practices and demonstrations, they've only retained up to 50% of what they hear and see and experience. Whereas at the bottom, where you have up to 90% retention and remembrance, these are our EL experiences. So looking at these 4 topics down here, you can see hands-on workshops, collaborative lessons, model a real experience or actually have an experience. These are things that we all think of when we think of upper level courses. They all have these components in them. But what we don't realize is we actually have these components in all of the classrooms, or at least most of the classes we have here at PARC when we have group works. So designing collaborative lessons, simulating an experience, or performing and designing an actual experience is something that many of our classrooms already do. So PARC University already has lots and lots of experiential learning. We just might not recognize it as experiential learning. Most people think of it as a one-on-one experience a student will have, whereas any interactions between multiple individuals is also an EL experience, and PARC University is rife with EL experiences. So the problem then becomes, how do you actually evaluate your EL experience? There are actually 3 different categories when it comes to evaluating EL experiences. And one is self-reflection. Oftentimes, this isn't really focused on in grading EL experiences because we don't actually have the student do a self-reflection, which is probably the most important part of an EL experience, because with self-reflection, the student then realizes the skills that they've actually learned and gained and the improvements they've made throughout the whole process. And they've probably also realized where they need to spend more time in improving certain categories and certain understandings. So self-reflection is oftentimes the most important part of EL experiences, but is rarely actually focused on when it comes time to understanding and reflecting on what was gained in this experience. The second form of evaluation is peer evaluation. And this is fairly common when we have group work in our program, in our classrooms, or group activities, where we have group members evaluate and help determine the strengths and weaknesses of their fellow group members. Oftentimes, this is not guided very strongly so that students don't really provide an effective evaluation. But having a strong guidance on what to sort of look for and what to evaluate can then provide an exceptional experience and learning opportunity of an individual when what they perceived in their self-reflection as strengths and weaknesses is either supported or refuted by their fellow peers when it comes time to determining how well they actually learn. Now, the third one is actually a mentor evaluation. This is oftentimes the one that is given the most emphasis because oftentimes this is where the grade comes from. Now, this can be very hard because oftentimes what we consider EL experiences are one-on-one conditions. So having a uniform evaluation of an experience that's for an individual becomes very difficult because how can you compare apples and oranges? But if there is a certain framework or certain guidance on what to look for, that should be a universal encompassing understanding or experience for these individual EL experiences, then a comprehensive understanding of what the Park students are actually learning is improved and helped throughout all of the experiential learning processes that they hopefully gain throughout their 4 years at Park University. So what the group has sort of come up with is creating rubrics for these 3 different evaluation categories. These rubrics are intended to provide a foundation and a framework of how you can tailor the experiences and the evaluations of both the self-reflection, the peer evaluations, and the mentor evaluations to see how effective these EL experiences actually are, what the weaknesses are in these experiences, and how to improve them to ensure Park students are not only getting the knowledge they need for their discipline, but also gaining the competencies and confidence in their competencies that all Park graduates are to graduate with.